Since franchising has overtaken Europe and North America, it raises the question of being loyal to a team because contracts are being extended further and further now. And so you see players signing for 2 or 3 years. And you should always ask the question of, even in your own life, of when does a loyalty kind of be a burden to your entire situation? Now, for new players or even existing players, you don't know what's out there in terms of salary potential or even teammate potential, right? Like you don't know, okay, if I go to this other organization, what other types of teammates can I get depending on branding power of the organization and its history or the managerial staff or the coaching staff. And then also you don't know the salary potential that you could get from these other teams if you never look for the option to do so, right? And this is even more true for rookies, of course. Like rookies that stay with a team for too long can be asked to be secured into long contracts, and that can be after you have proven yourself, right? So like say if you have an outstanding rookie year and they signed you for one contract and then suddenly, oh, I want to sign you for a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract. Well, you might not be getting what you're worth because they're going to put it at a lower rate than the rate in which maybe other teams will offer you, right? Now, the prime example of this is, at least this year, is Griffin. They all signed 2-year contracts this year in the LCK. But what happens if, like, for instance, you win Worlds? Like, you just screwed yourself out of a large salary bump. Like you completely just fucked your entire future career. Well, not entirely, but you still screwed yourself out of a lot of money. Now, of course, there's probably clauses in there in their contract itself that says, okay, well, I get a salary bump if we do well at this tournament or place this, X at this tournament, MSI or Worlds or whatever. But generally, you're probably going to be paid lower than if you were to go to another team and say, hey, I'm a world champion, give me hella money, right? And then not only that, but if you do sign a 2-year contract, well, then people are going to have to buy you out. That's going to take extra money off of your salary. And then suddenly you're left with a less of an increase than you would have liked if you just only signed a 1-year contract. So now, there's this sense of loyalty that seems to exist in Asiatic cultures, or at least in Korean and Japanese culture as well. And that they have a strong sense of loyalty and pride for sticking to a specific company or team for a long period of time, but that also extends to just their entire ideology of age and tenureship. Because, well, if you're older in their societies, then you get more respect. You have a lot more wisdom, so people respect you more. And so you have this sense of pride as you get higher and higher in age. And, in Korean teams, if you stay with that team longer, then you have more say within the team. Maybe you are able to dictate what kind of roster that you want or the managerial staff within your team. But within Western cultures, age really isn't viewed in the same light. It's actually kind of viewed as a negative, at least more specifically within American culture. So this is kind of speaking just from an American viewpoint or a Western viewpoint. But this type of environment or idea of staying too loyal, it's similar to real life and just regular jobs and everything. So Forbes, they did an article in 2012. The actual paper is by a man named Bidwell from the University of Pennsylvania, and there's like another study from Princeton or something which alludes to the same thing, but it said that employees get paid more from being an external hire rather than being promoted from within. And this seems to be the case, at least in a lot of my experiences, that you often don't really get a raise anymore within America. Like you just get paid a base salary, and from there, even if you do exemplary things and you show that you're proficient or maybe even better than a lot of the other employees, that you still don't get a raise. It's like cool, you are better and you're more efficient, but hey, guess what? No one cares. You just end up having a higher workload, and that's really about it. Maybe you get promoted, but most often you don't, and you don't get a raise. And so the current trend is that you're far more likely to get paid more if you're an external hire. And it also said you're also more likely to get fired, but hey, Korean advice, just don't be fucking bad. So the whole idea is that moving from a team to team or company to company, you're more likely to get paid more if you did somewhat well based on your past experiences. And that's also the same in life, and how if you have education, higher education, and you also have previous work experiences, then people are more willing to hire you because you may have had those higher outside experiences than someone internally, so they would just rather hire you instead because you're more appealing in that sense. So in terms of just entire life aspect, there are many things that you shouldn't be overly loyal to. I mean, unquestioningly loyal to. I like friends, for instance. It's like if you have a friend that is going down towards, the depths of hell, and you expect to, he expects you to follow him, then yeah, that's kind of pretty crazy, right? His life is going in a downward spiral. Like I've had friends that have become drug addicts, and it's like, am I really gonna follow you down that path? No, of course not. So loyalty only extends so far, even with friendship. And that should also be extended to your business life as well, too. Now, there are players like, say, Bjergsen or Perks, for instance, that have reasons to stay loyal to their team, right? Bjergsen, of course, he's the captain of his team. He gets a say on how the roster is formed, and he also has a say on managerial staff. Same thing with Perks. And then they both are also invested in heavily from their own teams and organizations themselves as being a face for the brand. So you have that reason to stay loyal to those organizations as well. But that's a really good reason to stay loyal to those teams. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a sense of duty to owe someone for making you what you are today. Like, make no mistake that you should have respect for those that have brought you up and kind of helped you along your way, but don't let that overcome practicality, right? At what point does your upbringing from a specific person, company, or team run out? When do past deeds become less meaningful than prime current opportunity? This is the exact question you should ask yourself when you're in that position. Refuse to be taken advantage of and brought down to a level in which you aren't growing. And that is the main reason in which you shouldn't stay too loyal to a team, a friend, anything, is that once you're being brought down and you're being brought down from growth, it's probably a time in which you should consider, and I'm not saying you should do it all the time, but you should consider breaking off that relationship itself and going on to something new.